Hey, this is Randall's little sister, Deidre Fowler, and I want to read erotica to Jody B with Po Boy's podcast about big veiny cacks and vagines.
Nice.
Welcome to Married AF. We are your hosts, Brooke and Randall Fowler. On this show, we discuss the topics that really matter.
Like big veiny cocks and our favorite TV shows.
So pull up a chair at our kitchen table and hang out.
While I bulldog my nuts. Well, finally, we're back with the great Rachel Miller.
Feels like
I'm telling you, it seems like now, because, I don't know, it just seems like it gets longer and longer between
I feel like
visits.
I haven't talked to you guys in forever.
Every single time, and I don't know what it is, but right off the bat, just because we value your opinion so much, first thing we got to ask is what you thought about the Kristen Beck episode.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you were so cute, by the way, because you were both so excited about this episode. You could tell from a million miles away that you guys were totally stoked, but like, you know, like sort of the way Brooke described it is total fangirl way. Like it was so cute.
I had to just adorable. Like get it out of the way because I was like, I feel like I'm gonna sound that way anyway. So
I think she's talking about both of us.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Clearly,
both of you were. But the episode was really great, and I think that what's helpful is the more we have these conversations, the more we normalize this process, and the more we understand about people struggling around gender, the less people freak out about it. I mean, I'm someone who I work with children who are struggling around that issue. I have friends who have transitioned. I have friends who have children who have transitioned as young as like 4. Like, this is a hard topic, and people are assholes.
Oh
God!
If you want to watch me lose my shit, watch somebody try to make ignorant comments about transgender people, and I will go off the deep end.
Oh, me too. And so would Brooke. I mean, it's not, to me, it's an off limit. I mean, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah, just don't go there.
Yeah, it's just a no-brainer. For one,
right.
If you don't know enough about it to speak educated, with some sort of opinion, then just don't even talk, don't even weigh in, because I know I couldn't understand it, from that perspective, but I mean, I have nothing but respect for anyone, whatever lifestyle they choose or gender that they are. Who cares? It doesn't bother me a bit. But
I so appreciate Kristen being willing to like do that openly and have that conversation and really acknowledge that her process isn't anybody else's, and how she sees that. She doesn't live in anybody else's shoes. She's telling her story.
That was eye-opening for me. Like it, and I felt like it was. You hit the nail on the head. That was kind of like the biggest point I thought from the episode was, she's never, she doesn't put herself in any kind of a box, right? And that's great that, she doesn't even put real labels on it.
Not even like trans, because she's like, what am I transitioning from?
Yeah, she doesn't really even like the term.
Yeah.
And that's fair for everybody. That should open it up for everybody to be like, you know what? Who really gives a shit? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like everyone's floating somewhere in the, in different parts of this big ass world that we live in, and spectrum of gender.
People are just trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, everybody's just trying to, just want to be happy. But the first 2 minutes when Kristen came on, and I loved your tweet when you were like, I'm 5 minutes in and I'm ugly crying. The first 2 minutes had us scared shitless because she came out hot, like deep, my soul is, and I was like, fuck, this is gonna go terribly. Like it started so but I mean, she just rallied it, boom, and it was great. But woo.
And she's really real about this is tough stuff, right? Like, she's lived hard stuff, and to be willing to say to people she doesn't know, that her soul is broken, were her words, if I remember correctly.
That's exactly what it was. That crushed me. I felt terrible.
I know.
And I wondered how you guys were holding up. Like, the therapist in me is going, oh, maybe
we thought we were doomed.
Maybe I should have made myself available for that call.
Yeah, we thought we were
right?
doomed for a second. We looked at each other like, I was writing on my notepad and I was like, oh fuck, how can we turn this?
I know. I was like, I'm not qualified to be
And luckily, Kristen just let us right out. I mean, she's just awesome. She's one of my heroes. I love her.
So great. Like, she's so incredibly, she's so incredibly articulate and able to tell the pieces of her story that she feels comfortable telling in such an empowering way.
Yeah.
That's it's incredible to hear. And the whole emotional support dogs that I'm crying. I'm on my way to work trying not to ugly cry in my car because I see clients in 20 minutes.
Well, and there was a picture she posted on Instagram, like, I think the day after we talked to her or something, where she had to go to some kind of memorial service or something.
Yeah.
And it was just a picture of her sitting there with her head down and her service dog like had her paw up, like she was just like holding her paw. I was like, oh my God.
I mean, how hard did that hit you? Like because we you hear all these stories, you don't really put it into perspective till you, I guess, and you probably hear it with your clients, but we don't. To hear somebody say, my friend had a gun in his mouth, and his support dog saved his life, kept him from pulling the trigger. That's incredible.
Yeah, it is, and people don't know what a gift those animals are. I'm a really, like, if I was in an environment, and I may eventually do this, I'm a huge supporter of animal assisted therapy. And I don't mean in the sense that, like, you bring a therapy dog to the hospital kind of thing. I mean, you have a therapy dog in the space, because when you're dealing with trauma, animals can be so impactful in those moments. Yes. This is why equine therapy is such a popular thing. This is why emotional support animals are becoming very big. And there's a difference between an emotional support animal. Like, you can register any random animal in some places as an emotional support animal, but then there's also like true therapy dogs, dogs that go like Kristen's dog, who are trained specifically to notice and pick up,
to detect triggers certain
and
changes,
to know those things, and to know what to do to calm someone down and to bring someone back to present, who's having a flashback or who's, in the middle of a panic attack. Those animals are priceless.
Or detect a seizure coming on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and that's another. I want to give another plug to her organization at woundedpawproject.org.
Yeah.
They're doing great. Cool. They're doing great things.
You can't get much better than
saving dogs and turning them into service dogs for veterans. And I mean, if anyone wants to donate to a cause that does make a difference, you can look them up, and it's legit as fuck. I mean, it's Kristen Beck. She's transparent as you can be.
Yes, she
gives zero fucks. Yeah. And speaking of that, I don't know if you saw it, but she just this past weekend, I don't know if you heard the story about the girls down in Valdosta, Georgia, that the lightning hit their farm and killed 2 of their horses. These 2 little girls that work on it's like an equestrian farm where they have kids for camps and let them ride horses bareback and all kind of therapies with horses. Well, 2 of the horses were standing by a tree that got struck by lightning, and it killed 2 of them. Oh. So Kristen Beck and her wife caught wind of it on social media, and Kristen Beck and her father loaded up from Maryland, drove to North Carolina after someone agreed to donate a horse to give to the girls.
2 horses.
No, they only got 1 there.
Oh, and
another
then
one was doing
else.
it the next couple of days. Yeah, they ended up getting 2, but they went and picked up the one themselves. Her and her dad, who's in the documentary, they drove 18 hours straight and took this girl and brought the horse to their farm, and now they have 2. So, I mean, that's just so shit that you just can't. Everybody wants to think that they're putting in the work, that's putting your fucking money where your mouth is. Because for one,
right
she's a disabled veteran. Like, she's disabled and jumped in a car for 18 hours. I'm not disabled. I can't ride in a car for 18 hours straight.
You act like you're disabled sometimes.
I know. And then I just need to watch that, and I'm like, shit.
I mean, and that is somebody who walks the talk. She puts her money where her mouth is. She lives what she believes, and that's not always easy to do. And I have huge amounts of respect and admiration for people who can really live their truth and walk that in such an impactful way.
Yeah, I adore her.
We're glad that you loved it. We definitely thought of you the whole time we were doing it. I would have absolutely loved to have you on. I think next time when she comes on, because she wants to come on again, she said every 6 months. We need to arrange it and have you on.
Did she say that?
Yeah, she said it.
Yeah,
on the show.
I do remember that now that you mentioned it. Yeah,
I said we'll come back in 6 months, and I've talked to her since in DMs, because she's hooking us up with Robert O'Neill.
Yeah.
But she's just great. We love her. So we're going to do this first shot to Kristen Beck. This is some weird...
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing Rumplemints and Baileys instead of the Everclear.
That shouldn't be bad. That should be tolerable.
No, it's supposed to taste like a Thin Mint.
Yeah.
I'm still scared.
No, that one should be good.
How was it, babe? Oh, it's bad.
No. There's a little bit of a bite from the Rumplemints, but no, it does. It does kind of taste like a Thin Mint. It tastes kind of like mint chocolate chip ice cream.
That's tolerable. Some of the other crap you guys have been drinking lately.
Holy dog shit. That tasted like... It is a Thin Mint at the end.
Yeah.
Right. You got to let it finish out.
Uh-huh. That it's like that first bite from like the Rumplemints kind of gets you, but then like the like...
No, that tastes like a minute after you eat the Thin Mint, and like you still got a little bit like...
That like minty
in your teeth or your tongue, yeah.
Right.
Those are I could eat an entire box of Thin Mint.
All right, well, I want to jump right in this first question.
We still have another shot.
Yeah, we'll do one in the middle to something else.
Okay.
Something awesome that we come up with during.
Okay.
So today, like this is fast for us. 15 minutes. We're gonna jump in. Wow. Okay.
I know.
Well, this one has been. I've been holding it since like 2 weeks ago.
He's
Clearly, this is an exciting.
He's really anxious to get to this first question.
So should we warn people ahead of time? Like everybody knows what we're talking about, right?
Yeah,
like,
we are talking, and this one falls within the parameters. We are discussing pornography. It's however people wanted to ask questions about it. Mm-hmm. Yep. And this one I got to give you because this was a long email that I got, and there's kind of a story around it. This person is an admitted pedophile. They have been arrested. Huh? They said that the arrest was false and the charges were later dropped of possession of child pornography. So I just want to set that standard first.
Wait, so they said they're a pedophile, but then said it was falsely accused?
Well, that their crime that they were arrested for was possession of child pornography, but it was dismissed. And that this account that they sent the email from would be eliminated. They didn't want to be mentioned by name or anything like that.
Of course not. If you're going to admit that, then
I thought the question was very thought-provoking. It says this. Okay. I'm a pedophile. I have never hurt a child. Mm-hmm. I want to present a view of my mental illness from the sufferer's perspective. Mm-hmm. It is hell, and there is no one to reach out to. I know there are others who have suffered at the hands of pedophiles. But there are those of us that have never offended and just want help. Yep. What can we do, if anything? And before you jump in, I'm willing to take the bullet and say that I think this is a huge problem that doesn't get discussed enough. Because there's such a taboo around it, and we hate anything to do with hurting children. And I want to put that out there that I hate that as much as anyone. I think the immediate reaction
is like you don't want to but if somebody would actually look for help, because clearly it's a sickness.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. If the key is
at least they're admitting they know it's
wrong. We
wrong.
have to let the shock value.
Ugh.
We have to kind of see past it for a second, and that's why I want to get Rachel to chime in.
Well, Brooke, it's the thing you just did. It's the ick factor.
I know it is.
Yeah, it is.
But it just makes me.
People have that gut response to, oh my God, this is so wrong. So I'm gonna take a step back from that because I need everybody to sort of to step back from that initial gut reaction of, oh my God, I can't believe we're gonna talk about this. So I'm super impressed and really proud of somebody for actually being able to ask the question, because this is something most people won't ask even if they struggle.
Of course, I agree.
Thank you for taking that question and putting it to the front, because it's not talked about enough. And if we pull out, like, let's remember that what's deemed as illness, quote unquote, or a disorder, quote unquote, changes based on social context over hundreds of thousands of years, right? Like, I mean, at one point, what we call incest was commonplace.
Yeah.
You know, pedophilia, how we define that now. I mean, in other cultures hundreds of years ago, men sleeping with young boys was normal.
That's still normal in some cultures now.
And so my thing is that, you know, yes, I know we have an ick factor, right? Like, our initial response is, oh my God, that's the most horrific thing I've ever heard in my entire life. What is wrong with you, you sick bastard, right? Like, this is the response you get from people. So here's what I would say about that. Like, people are turned on by what they're turned on by, right? Like, there are people who have all sorts of fetishes in the world that we have not deemed mental illnesses. We used to list, you know, we used to list gay people as having a mental illness.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this was something that we did, right? Like, we stuck them in the DSM and we labeled them and we did all of these horrible things as a mental health community. And now we're like, oh, wait, that's just who they are. And does that mean by any stretch that what I'm saying is, oh, yes, this is perfectly fine? No, but what I'm saying is we have no research on people who are sexually attracted and turned on to children. We also know that sometimes people who are attracted to children have a history of being sexually abused as children themselves, and there's sort of a lock into some of that, but we don't have enough research on that. We don't know how to help them.
Yeah.
Like, because there's no research. But who's going to fund that research, by the way? Because everybody has the ick factor.
Yeah.
Everybody just freaks out and it's like, that's not something we can study. That's not something we can talk about. Those people are horrible and those people are monsters. I hear that on one level. And on the other, they're people.
I mean, I agree. Which is the weird part about this question was immediately following the normal, just like Brooke, ick factor that hit me from the question. The second thing that hit me was almost, proud for the guy of having the guts to say, because we don't know the whole story. We don't know what about the possession of child. I'm eliminating that. I'm just going off the bulk of what I think is important. But to be willing to say, look, I'm fighting off my urges. And if we can't get them help before then, we're almost just giving them fish in a barrel.
Right.
If nobody will get to them before that, especially if they're asking for it.
We've sentenced them to a life of not being able to function.
Yeah, like, compressing their urges.
Yeah. No one knows how to help them. No one knows what to do about that. You come to therapy and I promise you, yeah, sure, therapists are taught to leave their stuff at the door and help clients. But most therapists that I have even seen in my own trainings react to this and are like, that's out of my scope of expertise. I can't touch that. There are very few people that will deal with that and sort of say, okay, let me see how I can help you. Let me see who I can find to help you. This is not something people necessarily specialize in. I'm sure there are some, but they've got to be hard to come by. And how do you search those without potentially putting yourself in danger.
Right.
Yeah, and how does one of these self-admitted non-offending pedophiles, which takes guts to acknowledge that, just to say it,
Yeah.
how do you make it to where they can reach out for help and not be, for one, condemned socially, condemned economically, arrested,
Exactly. Yeah.
you know, everything taken away from them?
Is there even anything?
Is there even a safe space where one of them could go and be like, you know what? I've never hurt anyone in my life, but I know that in my crazy, or, you know, however they term it, if they say they're crazy or their mental illness, they are attracted to young children and it's killing them, but they're fighting it with every ounce in their body. Can you help me? It's almost like we just can, all we can say is nope.
But how do you, like, I mean, this is going to sound terrible, but like, how would somebody like that satisfy any of their urges without hurting somebody? Like, is there anything like in existence for them? Because child pornography, of course, is illegal because you would have to have children that actually involve, like live children involved to make it. So like, fuck no. And like, it seems like you'd have to have, God, I think I heard this on like Joe Rogan, like virtual reality. Like,
I've heard of, that's what I was going to say. I've heard of like, and does sound terrible. None of us are, I hope nobody just jumps in and hears this like this is the start. But there are countries that are doing child sex robots and virtual reality child porn. And giving access to,
so that they don't go out and hurt.
So they don't hurt any real children or look at any real child porn, which people think is victimless, but it's not, because those children were put in. So when they say to themselves, "Oh, this child porn I'm looking at is victimless," I'm not hurting anybody. Yeah, you are, because some kid had to film a porn scene, and that's just rationalizing your crimes.
Yeah.
But what is your thoughts, Rachel, on something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I haven't really given a lot of thought to it, so I won't lock myself into a response. Yeah, I don't know.
Because everybody else that has weird fetishes
I guess I'd be curious about the research. Like, how do you do research around that allows us to find out if that's effective?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That's really hard to say, but do I think there has to be something? Yeah. Do I think we as a mental health community have to do more and better for them? And do we sort of look, these are people in our society. Mm-hmm.
They're out there for sure.
Yeah. And they're people. Mm-hmm. I know that people sit around and do oh my God, they're monsters. And I really have a hard time with that, because what that does is it removes you from having to look at the fact that the reality is it may be someone in your life you don't know. Mm-hmm. You assume it's not anyone you know. But as this guy sort of telling you, it is probably people that you know.
Could be somebody you work with. Could be a cousin.
Right.
You don't know.
Hell, it could be a family member.
Anybody that crosses the line and actually does touch a child, in my mind, you are a monster. I mean, I can't get past that.
Well, of course.
And I don't say that, the thing they're doing is harming another person, and it's illegal. And we've talked multiple times about consent, and a child can't give consent, period.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So no, it's not okay. But this person is an adult and needs to control their own impulses. Yeah. I agree with that. And at the same time, how do we help them?
Right.
Like, even if they're in jail, what are we going to do? Leave them there forever?
Well, that's where you come to the economics of it. Of you can house these people for all of their life and cost the government millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. You can, some countries do the chemical castration.
Mm.
Yes, I've heard that too.
That sounds illegal.
I've heard that there are some places where prisoners actually ask for it.
What?
Oh, I've heard that.
Just so they don't have the urge anymore?
Yeah. So that there's no and here's my problem with that is that it doesn't necessarily, remember, sex starts in your head.
Right.
So that really just deals with the physical piece of it.
Oh my God.
Not the mental piece of it.
I would think that would induce more rage, because then nothing's working, maybe.
Well, thing. No, like there's no
no
not
science
a lot out
behind
there
it,
for
yeah.
this. It's interesting that this came up because a while back there was something on NPR. I'm trying to locate it now, specifically even about this. I thought it was more recent than that. I'm seeing something on This American Life, but there was also another one. I'm going to have to look for it. Because I remember posting the article at the time, and I said, look, I know people don't want to talk about this. And then, sure, you guys know me. I'll talk about anything. So I put it on the table.
Yeah.
I was like, look, this is something we have to talk about. People don't want to talk about it, but it's a thing, and we can't.
The more we don't talk about it, the more
people.
the more that people act on these urges and ruin more.
Well,
people's
I think
lives.
that the more that you make somebody bury a compulsion, the bigger that compulsion becomes.
Right.
Well, it becomes more all-consuming.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, to the point that you could see, like I could, for some reason, I don't know why this question hit me so hard, but I mean, I could feel it in the way that he wrote, and it may have been the backstory, but that he was, suffering with it. Like this
person's in pain.
Like
they're struggling.
They really don't want to hurt. And if you can look all the way back to Jeffrey Dahmer, remember him in his courtroom appearance where he said, "Don't let me out.
Yeah.
I'm a monster."
That gave me chills. Like I just watched that recently, and it gives me fucking chills to see him say that, because he's one of the only serial killers that like did that, and that like John Wayne Gacy's like, they all needed to die. They were sluts, whatever. And then like Ted Bundy, I don't think I ever admitted it. And it was so chilling to watch him say, like, I will hurt people.
Well, you got to look at it from this perspective, too. And Dahmer's a prime example. If you put away these people, that are pedophiles, I don't want to say these people like it's a bad word, but pedophiles or convicted pedophiles.
One of his last victims was 14.
They are going to be dealt with largely by prison law.
And he was killed in prison.
And he was killed in prison.
Yes.
Because on the prison totem pole, a sex offender, rapist, child, pedophile is the zero bottom of the barrel.
You're the first to go if you're anybody that hurts kids, and then you beat women or are a rapist, you're next. So there is no rehabilitation. They call prison, it's supposed to be rehabilitation, right? But there's no chance for a pedophile to be rehabilitated in our system currently, in my opinion.
No, not really. I mean, I think there are some people who do that work. I have a friend I know who deals with, who has dealt historically with sexual offenders, and
that is dark.
But look, there's a lot of people who don't want to do that work.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
I commend the friend that does it.
God,
that's
tough work,
so
right?
hard.
Like that's a hard place to be, and that's a
to
tough.
Sign up to do that is
and to take that home to your kids, that's
a tough deal, and in order to be able to do that, you have to be someone who can recognize their humanity first,
right?
Sure.
And you have to be able to sort of also acknowledge your own limitations and the fact that there's not a playbook for this.
No.
I mean, this is about as, in our society, this is as low as it gets. Those are the people that we as a society tend to put out there and be like, this is who we hate more than anything and anybody.
Oh, it is, and because they say that prison is a microcosm of society, right?
Right.
Yep.
And so you just look at it. It puts it right into perspective.
Well, and that's where, I think we could benefit from maybe keeping some of these real notorious motherfuckers alive.
Oh, sure, to research them.
And study them. Like I wish Ted Bundy was still alive, so we could have fucking studied his brain. And and Jeffrey Dahmer's another one where it's like, just to learn, like, what the fuck happened and how do we try and figure it out? Because, not everybody is to that extreme, but I think we could start there and work backwards, because we want to try to eliminate as many of those extremes as possible. Yeah. But we always jump straight to they have to be executed. I get it,
right?
I get it, but
and I'm like, okay, I hear you.
Yeah,
I hear. And here's the
think
other
of the
thing that I
benefit,
think,
people. They're locked up. They're not hurting people anymore. Let's use this.
But let's also, while we're talking about this, let's also have a really honest conversation about the fact that most people who experience sexual childhood abuse, childhood sexual abuse, it's from someone they know.
From a relative,
Very often
yeah.
it's from someone that is in their family,
Yep.
by the way.
Yeah.
We have this big fear of like stranger danger and who's out in the world. Let's get real clear about who's doing this to our kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually your own family. So don't pretend that this is so far away.
Oh, for
And
sure.
yeah, there's, this is where the term pedophile comes in. It's challenging because it's not as cut and dry as everybody wants it to be. There are people who would call someone who's 25, who's turned on by a 14 or 15-year-old who looks like she's 19, a pedophile, and some people would not.
Well, yeah, and let me jump in
Like
here.
R. Kelly.
Let me tell you this, and this is a huge.
Yeah.
This is a huge point. There's also a big gender bias in that. Whereas
Yes.
if it's a teenage boy, and I'm going to speak from my perspective, if I'm
and
in
like
high
the
school
teacher
and I'm
affair.
16 and my 35-year-old teacher wants to have sex with me, and if I had sex with her, we would, and I'm just being honest. My friends would have high-fived me and been like, "You motherfucking lucky motherfucker."
Well, and that's typically what happens.
But if it's a male
until the parents
teacher,
find out, yeah.
and
Right.
it's a
We
total.
don't ever talk about female offenders, by the way.
Yeah, it's a totally.
There's been a couple in the
Almost
news.
Always talk about male offenders.
Yeah. Oh, there was.
So it's a hard conversation to have because we go by the basic stereotype. So I did find the piece from This American Life, and the guy who was willing to talk about this is 19. He's a 19-year-old pedophile who's never gone near a child, and he wanted people to hear his story because he doesn't know what to do.
I wonder if that's who wrote us.
I know, right?
It makes me wonder. If the truth is it makes me really sad if it is, because that means this was 4 years ago. This means he still hasn't gotten any help.
Oh.
And my heart breaks for that. Not only for this person, but also for the children that are exposed should he ever not be able to control himself. Like, I wish I
Were
had
they
an
able to
answer.
give him any advice on where to go or what to do?
So my best advice is going to be find the closest place that you have to you that deals specifically with sexual compulsion, sexual issues. I would avoid places that go with that are very like sex addiction, because that goes by an addiction model, and that's not what this is.
No. That's
Well, so I want to ask you as a therapist, what's the rule or the law or the standard that you guys go with to where if someone comes into you and says, and I know it's going to go on a therapist by therapist basis, but is there a protocol where if I come into you and I'm 22 years old and I say, look, I'm attracted to children. I've never touched one, but I'm scared to death that I will. What are the chances that therapist reports them to the police instead of helping them?
what's the protocol?
That goes state by state.
Yeah.
So
That's what's scary too.
There's different requirements per state around like who do you report, and usually that's about homicide. Like usually that's about like we're afraid they're going to kill themselves or someone else. Like if we're concerned that they may harm themselves or others, then yes, that I wouldn't say that that's not possible, because different states have different laws around what's required to be reported. If a crime is actually not being reported, that can vary too. So if this person's saying, I haven't actually done this, I mean, you only can really take their word on it.
Right, I was about to say, but then, plenty of people could go in and be like, I swear I haven't. Seriously.
And you would think
this is not true life, clearly, but an episode of, I think it was Private Practice, a couple of years ago, did an episode around this topic where one of the psychiatrists ends up with a client and he really does try to help.
Yeah.
This guy ends up actually acting out on his stuff, and there's a whole, it's the whole story about it. But it really did address this whole point of Where are these people supposed to go? What are we supposed to do to help them?
Yeah.
And I can tell you in my experience, like, that's not something anybody's really talked to, like, me about, not in trainings. Have I specifically asked? No. Have I had larger conversations around this? Yes, but that's mostly because I'm somebody who says this is kind of something we need to talk about. So yeah, if we're talking about somebody who is looking for help, I would locate the therapists in your area or the clinics in your area that are known for being able to deal with sexual compulsion, or find somebody who, look, you can go online and you can see who's doing the work around this, right? Like you can find, there's a new book that just came out. It just came out this year. I haven't even had a chance to read it yet, but it's sitting on my shelf. It's called Treating Out of Control Sexual Behavior. Now, most of this is about rethinking sexual addiction, but you look at those authors and you see where they're located, and you can do some research about who's researching this topic, and you contact them and ask if they know someone in your area that they can refer you to. Like, this is a really specific topic, and no, not every therapist can handle this one.
No, that's great advice.
This is not a topic that you necessarily send in an email that says, hey, I'm really struggling with this idea that I think I want to have sex with children. You don't send that in an email, right?
No, right.
Unless you're sending it to our show.
Unless you're sending it to a podcast.
Right.
Anonymously, though.
Right. Yeah. And look, I can't blame this person for sending it anonymously. And I'm not here to say that this person doesn't have a problem. He seriously has a problem.
Yes.
And he's struggling. And so for me as a mental health practitioner, I need to figure out what I can do to help him. Yeah. Like, how do I help him? And if I don't feel like that's within my area of expertise, or that's out of my scope of knowledge, then I need to go find the people who can give it to me. Like, I need to go find good referrals, and I need to, do what talk to colleagues about where do I send this person to get the help they need.
So one thing, and you may have been just about to get to this before I interrupted you so rudely. I'm sorry. But
you're okay.
What we could say to this guy, because I'm sure he's listening since he asked, but that if you don't mind, and if you have the time and you're able to stumble across maybe somebody after you look into it for a little bit that is specializing in this topic, we will put it on our Twitter feed, the Married AF, that obviously they follow.
And you could respond.
Well, he said
he
was
just talk about this too on Twitter not that long ago.
He was going to delete it.
Post something about this.
I don't know.
I feel like we did. I feel like we had a brief conversation about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it, since we don't know anything about this person.
Yeah.
I can look and see if I have any connections who are specifically working around this. Or if I know somebody who knows somebody, and we can start there.
Yeah, exactly.
And because you said they deleted the email.
Yeah, they said they're going to delete that account. So we'll just post it on our main Twitter if you find anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I find somebody who's really doing some of this work, then I have absolutely no issues in putting out that information, because we should be putting it out. We should be connecting those people who are doing the work with the people who need the help.
Agreed.
Well, I'm just curious, like, what
it's an awful place to be in.
Mm-hmm.
What else would fall into sexual compulsion? Just like having to have sex all the time, or is it like
animals,
people like wanting
children?
to rape people too? Like, is that like?
Well, I mean, there's lots of you could sort of call it anything that falls in the line of sexual offending.
Yeah.
Like, something that you might go to jail for.
That involves sex.
Like, okay. Those are probably the people we want to find. Yikes, and what work they're doing and how they're approaching this topic and who's willing and able to take on these clients. Most people can't. Most people wouldn't know what to do with this.
No, that's a specialized. That's a special person that is.
But there's got to be somebody that, like, there always is, which is what I think is very rewarding.
That'll take the worst
I'm sure is what Rachel loves about her field. Is there's a whole wide open space for someone to be the first, like the trailblazer in this segment
to maybe make a difference in, you know,
of therapy and psychology.
Decrease all those horrible statistics, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, and part of, and let's be super real about it, because it's what we do around here. Look, y'all think it's not going to be you or anybody that you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, let's talk about, since we're talking about porn, let's talk about how much porn there is about teenage and pre-teenage girls.
Just go to YouPorn. Go to YouPorn,
Right.
and the first thing you'll see is everything about teenage so-and-so.
Oh, well, the whole gig is around
All teenagers.
the word teen. They can't, because they want you to think that they're like 19.
Now, if you actually look at it, that girl ain't no teen. But
It's the fantasy, though.
That's the fetish that
but
we
it's the
see.
fantasy, yes, because everybody
Yeah.
thinks teen is like untainted, and she's like super tight, and it just. Ugh.
But this is the problem. We have a
Yes.
total double standard in this society, where all of a sudden, when a girl of 14 or 15 grows boobs, she is fair game for any man who feels
my
like
God,
staring her
no.
down.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
So don't pretend like this guy acknowledging that he's turned on by children. We don't know exactly what that means for him.
Right.
True.
Like, or
It's a
and we're
wide
assuming it's
range,
him,
but still, yeah.
actually. I should check that, because we've been talking about this being a guy, and I don't know that. I assume, but
No,
that was a bad assumption on my part.
He was by his name on the email,
Okay.
unless it was a fake name. But he said he was deleting it, and it was definitely a male name.
Okay. So, but here's the thing. Does that mean like 5 and 6-year-old children are the sexual turn on? Does this mean like 11, 12? Like, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But don't act like there's this huge gap between a guy who's turned on by a, 12-year-old or a woman who's willing to have sex with a 14-year-old boy.
No, that's
don't
the same.
act like those people are any different than the people, talking about how great it would be to bang a mom and her daughter when the daughter's barely 18.
Oh, sure.
There's not much difference here. It's all part of what happens when we're dealing with fantasies is that it's how close to the edge of what's acceptable can we get for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. It's what we as society has deemed appropriate. Because if you talk to guys up until 10 years ago, I heard growing up
that
in school,
gross
I heard
phrase.
the adage,
Ugh.
if there's grass on the field, play ball.
No.
And I'm just being honest.
God,
that was
that's disgusting.
Makes
That-
my
I've heard
stomach
similar
turn.
things.
Yeah.
that was thrown around all the time.
You
And-
hear it in in like older movies. They say that shit all the time.
Well,
and
we're
it's
old
just-
now, so I'm talking about when I was younger. You would hear guys that were men,
Yeah.
and they
Yes.
would see a girl who might mature, because some girls mature early. Our niece Casey, and it drove me me and her dad both would very protective,
Almost stabbed
and
anybody.
it's not the fault of the girl. She's still 15,
Right.
Just because she looks what you think is 20 or 25, or the
Doesn't
same with
mean
my
shit.
son Griffin. He looks way older than 13. He's got a
My daughter
mustache.
did. My
Not
daughter
cool.
looked like she was, 20 when she was 12.
No. Yeah. I mean, that's not cool.
I mean, the girl had a set,
I looked like I was 12 when I was
24
20, so I didn't have that
triple
problem.
D's on her. Like, come on.
Oh.
But this is the thing. We make these people out to be these horrible monsters, right?
Yeah, they're not far off from your
They're
Uncle
not
Joey.
far off from what's acceptable, quote unquote.
So true. They're not far off from your crazy uncle at the barbecue that says
Look, right.
an
Y'all know you
inappropriate thing
have-
or two.
Just a little bit
Yes.
creepy. Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah. Y'all have a, like, I think there's a Grey's Anatomy line where they call him Dirty Uncle Sal, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, he's Dirty Uncle Sal, the guy who comes to Thanksgiving, who tells the bad jokes, and, you never leave him alone with the young girls.
Yeah.
Y'all know one.
Exactly. That's
Everybody
so true.
does,
That
yeah.
that kind of slaps you in the face, because that is so true. Everyone knows one. Everyone. There's one in your family and my family and
Yep.
in every listener's family. There's one or two floating right around you.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's just how fickle and how much semantics do you want to change to vilify one and exonerate the other?
Right.
And that's really not
And-
fair. That's not cool.
Yeah, no, it's not. And so for this particular issue the fact that we don't really have a great way to help them. There's no avenue for, look, we can get you help for your gambling problem, and we can get you help for your, addiction to nicotine and crack, and hell, we've come up with a drug that will counteract your opioid addiction. Like, we have all this stuff that we help people with all the time.
There's commercials for all that shit. I was addicted to crack cocaine, and I went to blah, blah, blah.
Like, we even sell sex addiction recovery, which is not
bullshit.
Really good, but that's all. Never mind.
Don't jump into that yet, because you have a question directed to you for that.
Ask
that's
David
coming up.
Duchovny how well that worked out.
Tiger Woods. Hell, every celebrity's been to rehab for sex addiction.
Everybody that cheated on their wife.
That gets me in a soapbox faster than anything. But we have all that treatment for that kind of stuff because that's a quote-unquote real problem. But this we've hidden underground.
It's a real problem that people are willing to talk about and admit. But then this other thing, they're like, no, it's too yucky. I can't. It's too out. Yeah.
Well, because it hurts to acknowledge that your Uncle Sal is a pervert.
It's too dark. It's too dark for so many people.
But you guys, you know that, like, in this country, we haven't even, I don't even remember how many states now, it's still legal to marry children.
Yeah, with parent consent, yeah. Texas, isn't it? Texas
I'm trying to remember if Georgia is. I know in Georgia you can marry your cousin.
I mean,
when I was
somebody who got married in Tennessee in Kentucky, and was asked 3 times that when they were getting their marriage license whether or not they were cousins.
That's
you're
true.
Sure you're not related.
Well, it's like second cousin. It's in all the marriage laws. Like when we got married, because I was like just perusing them for fun, and it was like, that shit's in there. It's like if you're related by blood but like twice removed, okay. It's like, oh God.
And so, like, this is the thing. We get ourselves all, like, this is the taboo thing, but we haven't outlawed people marrying, 10, 11, 12-year-olds. Like, nobody wants to talk about, Jerry Lee Lewis marrying his, 14-year-old cousin?
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah, I remember watching that Great Balls of Fire movie.
Yeah.
And I was only, 12 or 13 when that came out. And I was like, hang on, Mom. What?
Right.
What's happening?
But this is the thing, like, because he's a legend, we just sort of roll over that, right?
Yep.
And, even Elvis with Priscilla, like, we have a really weird way that we make sense of all of this stuff as a society in our own heads. And
Don't
so
go bad
this
on
is part
Elvis
of why,
now. I'm just kidding.
But, like, it doesn't all make sense.
No, it's not.
No, for sure.
It's not consistent. That is for sure.
Nothing with the government or laws or any of that
because
is consistent.
Because no one looks at it rationally. If everyone would sit down and look at it totally rationally.
Right.
But it's such, and I mean, I agree. I don't want to beat it into the ground. I think that, Rachel's done her by far best to shed some light on it. And
I think they need
if we can point that person towards some help.
Towards some sexual compulsion therapy.
We're happy to post it on our timeline.
Yeah, let me see what I can locate. I'll see if I can find if there's any good clinics doing any work on this or any good therapists who feel like they've got a handle on this that I can locate. Of course we never know if it's going to be local. But look, that stuff needs to be shared regardless. So yeah, I have no issue seeing what I can find and putting that out there.
Sweet. Well, there you go. We made up for that coming in hot for 15 minutes, Rachel, by going for 35 on that one.
Nice.
I knew we would. I knew it. That's why I was foaming at the mouth, though.
Yeah,
all right, this question is for Brooke first. Like it's directed to her, but we'll let you answer it, and then we'll see what Rachel thinks to your answer.
Okay.
All right, Brooke. My husband jerks off to porn almost daily, but we have regular, satisfactory sex.
Okay.
Lately, the thought of him beating his penis while looking at those perfect bodies and faces churns my stomach.
Aw.
Am I being irrational?
I mean,
so she's been okay with him looking at porn in the past. Now it's starting to bother her.
He is hungry, obviously. If they have a healthy sex life and he still finds the need to do that. I mean, I don't know. I feel bad for her that she's that. insecure. I mean, we all have insecurities. I mean, I'm insecure as fuck. So I'm saying this from a place of love. Like,
so should she be, is it okay for her to say, after she's allowed it, to say, hey, I know I allowed it, but my parameters have changed. Maybe dial it back.
I think it's okay for her to talk to him about it. I think she needs to talk to him about it and see maybe what else I don't know, like what else they can do together to, I don't know, like.
She's calling you in, Rachel, is what she's doing. Help her out.
I am not why are they asking me this shit? Yeah.
She's dying over here. Lifeline. I don't know what I would say either, babe.
I know, because I'm like, I don't have that. I don't know.
What do you think, Rachel?
So we've talked about this idea of like things are negotiations, right? So what I would be curious about is, and clearly I am not their therapist, I'm not giving therapy, but as a therapist, where my brain goes around this is what's happened that recently that makes this no longer okay.
There you go. You're so smart.
So, yeah, like has her body maybe changed? Did they have a baby?
I'm like, yeah. Well,
did she gain some weight?
No, she's not irrational. Something happened.
Right.
And whether that's within the relationship or to her own body or,
insecurity doesn't come out of nowhere
more
usually.
Frequent than before, or who knows? Sometimes like a friend said something and has a problem that sort of makes you think about it in a different way.
Yeah.
Like, so what wasn't a problem before is a problem now. I'd want to know what's changed, that it's not okay now. And really sort of sit with that and figure out, is this really about the porn?
Mm-hmm.
Is this really about, he's clearly still attracted to you.
Right. If he's having sex with you a bunch, so.
And yet there's something, this is saying something to you that it didn't used to say. And so I'd be really curious what's happening for her, that this doesn't feel okay anymore. And I'm not saying that it should be okay. That's something they're going to need to negotiate in their relationship.
Sure, that's what I thought.
But something's happened that the way she saw it earlier isn't, it's different.
Or was she really okay with it 100% earlier?
That leads me into a question that I think is important that doesn't get discussed a lot, and I think we actually have touched on it before when we talked, like the very first time with you, and we talked about boundaries. But shouldn't boundaries for couples always be subject to change in a judiciary, like come together and modify, like something that maybe used to be okay just no longer fits? Like you shouldn't be able to just get a forever pass because maybe in the past you both used to, do a little cocaine or something, or, a little ecstasy.
Because when you were 25 at work.
Right.
Yeah. And now you're 42 and like you should always be able to go back to the table and be like, look, we got to sit down and go back over this Constitution.
That's the only way a marriage can last, I think.
It needs to be a working document.
Yes.
Because look, people change and people grow. And if the hope is we're growing together, and look, I try as often as possible to refrain from using the words always and never, because that's usually what comes and bites you in the ass. But the more you can make those things, the more you can remain flexible around that stuff and have open dialogue about why you're struggling, where you're struggling, what might need to be renegotiated. When boundaries get rigid, that's when I have concerns. Like,
makes sense.
Because boundaries are supposed to be like dotted lines, not brick walls.
Sure. Well, that's when a divorce happens.
Right. And they should be able to be maneuvered dependent on circumstance and situation and backstory and all kinds of things. Like the minute people get really, really rigid and locked in is when you start butting heads and you got like insurmountable conflict that's really challenging to deal with in a therapy room.
You gotta have compromise.
That goes all the way to real life. Whenever, and I can speak for me, whenever I dig in, and even when I'm wrong, because I'm wrong all the time, and I'll catch myself digging in, and to myself, I'll be like,
Brooke's like,
this
yeah.
I am losing this battle. I have dug in on the wrong side, and I'm still digging in.
Doesn't stop you, baby.
And I know it. And I've even told you after the fact, like I knew when I dug in, that was wrong.
And I do it too.
Of course. But you got to be able to admit
it's pretty
that.
Normal.
Yeah.
It's pretty normal. It's not unusual. And what it is sort of how you make the repairs around that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you go back and be like, okay, I did the thing and I know better than to do the thing. And now I'm really sorry. Are you super mad at me? Like, did you tuck your tail? Did you tuck your tail and apologize and move on? Yeah, people can do that. I think sex, and particularly porn, is known for bringing up a lot of insecurities for women.
Yeah.
A lot of feelings of inadequacy, particularly as women get older. And if men are continuing, and look,
that's where I feel she's going.
Mm-hmm.
If you're asking me, that's where I feel like it's coming from.
Yeah.
It's hetero. What I'm talking about is really heteronormative. Like I'm talking about, the stereotypical
fake tits.
Yeah, like you're watching porn about a Barbie doll, and your wife's over there going, "That's not what I look like. I don't understand."
Yeah, she's had 3 kids, 2 C-sections.
And she's seen your ugly ass and smelled your breath. Like, come on.
Yeah, and she's helped you with your hemorrhoids.
Right.
Put shit on your damn big ass hemorrhoid vein, and she is sitting over here maybe with some stretch marks, and you're looking at a 20-year-old. Fake tits wants to be an actress and is doing her best to become one.
Yeah.
She's doing what she got to do.
Yeah, and it's super hard. Like, sex is one of those things that brings insecurities for both men and women. And if we talk about do you remember the guy with the question about the dildo that was bigger than he was?
Yeah.
Yes, I think about him all the time.
Yeah, but it's a similar conversation. It's just flip-flopped, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got insecurities about this. But we convince ourselves that we're like the only ones struggling with this. And nobody really wants to talk about it. And no, she's not irrational. Just she's struggling with something right now. Or maybe the relationship is struggling with something.
She needs to talk to her husband.
You got to talk about it.
Yeah.
All right, this one is for Rachel.
So I was kind of going down the right path.
Yeah, you were.
You were for a while. You were going there.
This one is super interesting. I'll be honest, I've never heard this term in my life.
Uh-oh.
And
I'm afraid maybe
Rachel probably has, but I never have. Okay, I was the subject of an article in The Guardian, and we have the attached article. We can post it on our Twitter. We have been given permission. He's 50 years old, and he is a solo sexual.
Oh, I've never heard of that either. Okay.
And he said, my question is for Rachel.
I know who this is.
Why is solo sexuality so rarely discussed? My sexuality is expressed via my edging masturbation sessions that can go anywhere from 5 minutes to 5 hours.
Huh?
I have my own masturbation station with a super comfy recliner, my Albaline, which is that like super greasy shit.
Oh, yeah.
God, my
toys,
toys, a PC, and my webcam. I play clips of myself orgasming on a loop while I fuck myself.
Oh, I was about to say I was with the webcam.
I'm sorry to laugh, but
that
the fuck myself at the end.
That is a intricate setup.
That's that's a ton of like focus and effort and attention paid to detail.
5 hours.
And in the there was more. I have to consolidate these because I write these on index cards I translate them from the emails, and I'm out of room. You can
I know
see it.
your writing's getting
But
smaller.
in his
and smaller,
story, he was
smaller.
talking about it is a man, and he does have occasional sex with women, but it's not satisfying.
Is this the guy that started following us from?
No, I don't think so.
No.
But he just said that his real sexual satisfaction is with himself. And he calls himself a solo sexual. I'd never heard that. I'm going to be honest.
I've never heard that
term.
either.
I don't know that I've ever heard it called that specifically. But it's not these days people are really becoming pretty open about what works for them. I mean, we don't hear a ton about like asexuality either.
Yeah.
People who don't really have much sexual desire, don't really have a desire to have sex. So there's a lot of, I don't really want to use the term fringe, but I don't have a better word right now.
No,
that
I mean,
are sort
I
of
think
on the
that's
edges
fair.
of things, like that, you know, maybe there's not a large enough population that people are talking about it. Or maybe there's a larger population of this particular focus that has stayed sort of underground.
Mm-hmm.
They're only just some things are just becoming labeled.
Mm-hmm.
They're just being given names, you know, and having a name allows people to talk about it and allows people to feel like, oh, look, someone else does what I do.
Sure. No,
yeah.
that's the power of social media in a good way, actually.
The internet in general. So is that person somebody like, so solosexuals, like they have a strong sexual desire, but
With themselves.
So not asexual. They just like to do it with themselves.
Right. It's about them.
And I mean, if you're
Probably
asking,
the most healthy
if
sexual
you're asking me, yeah, if you're asking me if I think what I think about it, I'm like, good for you, bro.
I know.
I mean, whatever. It doesn't affect me a bit. Like
They don't need
anyone.
like the companionship part of it.
No, that's a lucky son of a bitch, in my opinion. If he satisfies himself
doesn't have
completely,
to deal with all the other bullshit that goes
yeah, I'm gonna raise this second shot to this guy,
to the solosexual.
to the solosexual. Thank you for the question,
to
sir.
the Han solosexual.
Yeah, and I think some of it, asking specifically, why aren't we talking about it? It's because a lot of people don't have a word for that. And whenever something seems out of the quote unquote norm, whatever that is, by the way, like.
Oh, I agree. I mean,
That's
what's
harder.
normal anymore? Like that, and it's awesome that you said that word, because I listened to a Kristen Beck. She went on a podcast when I was kind of researching her before she came on, and it's called Mic Drop, and it's with a fellow Navy SEAL that has a podcast, and they went on, and they're buddies. And the other Navy SEAL knew Kristen from when she was Chris.
Right.
And he's more
they're
of
still
he's a
friends, right?
yeah, but he's a very conservative stickler to his belief, and they were very friendly about it. And Kristen handled it better, more eloquently than anyone. And she was like, "Look,
She's the best.
she pre-warned the listeners, like, look, I'm going in with my buddy, who doesn't think the same as we do, that I do, but we're not going to go rip each other's heads off, but we're going to openly discuss it and discuss our differences." And he kept calling everything that Kristen is, he would call it uncommon.
What?
And Kristen would be like, look, you know, I don't care if you say that to me. What I care about is the kids that might listen,
Right.
and that it hurts their feelings. Kristen's like, you said to me, bro, all you know, we
That's why
go back.
I love her so much. She doesn't.
It doesn't hurt me a bit, but it's the kids. He said, so Kristen said, if I tell you that word offends me, will you stop saying it?
Aw.
And it was amazing, because he said, you know what? I will. And it was
And
that
sometimes-
civil, and it was that nice.
Aw.
And that's what happens when you're able to make it. People are hard to hate close up, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's totally real.
You know, that's a Brene Brown line. Like, people are hard to hate close up, move in, because when it's about people, then it's hard to sit around with that locked in belief. When you have to look at a person and see their face and look in their eyes and realize that they're human just like you, it's harder to sit in a place of judgment.
Oh,
You know, that's
absolutely.
harder. And I think whenever you're talking about something that is, I'll even say unfamiliar, that's when it feels a little scary and people get uncomfortable. And I think, you know, if we're talking about this guy, you know, this guy's story, you know, in particular, if you don't know anybody else who is turned on by themselves and prefers to have sex only with themselves, then you probably, you know, you're like, wait, is something wrong with me? Because I'm that different? Because I'm different than the norm? Because I'm different? You know, it's unfamiliar territory. And it's really helpful when you can give something a name.
Yeah.
Sure.
This is why, like, some people are like, oh, you know, people who don't like to have sex, they just have a low libido or they have low sex drive.
Yeah,
no,
asexual.
maybe not necessarily. Maybe they just really don't have any, like, maybe asexual is the word that works for them. But like Kristen pointed out, sometimes these labels don't work either, but at least it gives you some language, right?
Yep.
And so for this guy, part of why I think people aren't talking about it is exactly like what you guys said. I've never heard that term before. Oh, look, there's a term for it. I can look it up on the internet, and now I know what it is. And now I know that I'm not the only person who thinks this is, you know, this is really cool. And that this is where I get my satisfaction from. How awesome. Maybe there's a community of us. But when labels are relatively new and we're just developing language around it, it takes a while for that stuff to come into the mainstream.
And Dr. Muddington asked the famous and lovely Dr. Muddington. He asked a great question, and we never got to it with Kristen because we ran out of time, but it was very well put. And he said very respectfully, because as crazy as Dr. Muddington is, and I'm sure you heard it on the episode, when he knows when to dial. He knows what he's a good guy, and he loves Kristen Beck, so he was very respectful. But he wanted to know if what Kristen's thoughts were on the LGBTQ community maybe rushing to judgment on some people that they deem are being what's the word that everyone uses now? Offensive. If that they deem are being offensive, maybe really they don't know what to say without being offensive.
Well, I think Kristen approaches that in a great way. I think she, like, well, in her documentary at least, she does.
And Muddy's question at the end of that was, do you think that there's room for maybe some understanding there,
education
from their side too, to kind of feel how uncomfortable it is for people that are learning?
Right.
Well, yeah, look, there's room for mistakes. Sure.
Yeah.
There's room for mistakes. And when you make a mistake, you have an obligation to keep your defenses down and to learn.
Yeah.
Like, what happens very often is when someone says that word is offensive, people then they feel shame and they feel
counter-defensive,
guilt,
yeah.
and so they get defensive and nasty.
Sure.
Well, maybe you shouldn't be so offended, and maybe, you shouldn't be so sensitive. And no, if someone tells you you've offended them, or someone tells you that the word you're using is hurtful, sit down for a second and hear that, and be able to say, okay, this is new and different for me, but there's a person in front of me saying that this word that I'm using is hurtful. I have an obligation to hear that this is hurtful. And if my goal is not to hurt someone, then understand that word is hurtful and don't use it anymore.
Yeah, and to Brooke's point, I think what you were about to say about Kristen in her documentary, that right now I just realized what you're saying is absolutely true. When she said, and we covered it when we had her, she said, I can tell when someone's coming from a place of being a dick or not.
Right. She said, and she said, I don't even know
what to say sometimes.
What to call this,
Sometimes.
like she was like, so I understand when other people don't know what to call what this is, because I don't even know what to call it sometimes, because it was like a particular time where she was talking to some girl that was like a contractor coming to help her, and the girl was assuming that she was gay, that she was a gay guy. And,
okay.
And because she was like trying to approach her as like a, hey, my uncle's gay kind of thing. And it's like, oh, and Kristen was like, well, I'm just a human. I'm not gay or whatever, so she was trying to be like real, like.
But she didn't kill that girl.
No,
she didn't assassinate that girl
exactly.
for not knowing what to say. She was very nice about it.
She was very nice about it because clearly the girl was trying to connect with her in some way, but it was like, it was a very, like, she just had never encountered somebody like.
And that's a prime example of, I think, what Muddy's saying is if they're coming from a place of they're trying and they're really and I do think there are people that will dig in and be like, nope, you said the bad word, you're fucking the enemy.
Or you said the wrong thing, so you're obviously trying to hurt me. Like that's where I love her.
Here's something that I'm going to throw out there, though, and this around that topic, and that is that there's not a ton of excuse anymore to.
Well, this was in 2014,
to declare ignorance. Like, you can look it up online, right? Like, there's a lot of helpful information. So you, as a human being, have a little bit of obligation to educate yourself, and don't expect the people who, like, particularly groups that are marginalized, the LGBTQ community, people of color, do not expect them to educate you. Like, the person in the place of power and privilege has an obligation to, look, Google it first. Like, have a little bit of, gain some knowledge for yourself around this topic if you're going to be around someone who is from any type of marginalized population. I would say the same thing for, whether it's sexuality, whether it's gender, whether it's race, whether it's, able-bodied, whether, all of those things. You have the ability, because there's tons of knowledge available at your fingertips in seconds.
Sure.
And it's also really important to hear the person in front of you and accept their experience. You as the person who, like, if someone tells you something was hurtful, you don't get to tell them that it wasn't.
Right.
Oh, of course. Well, that
you can tell them you didn't mean to hurt them.
Yeah, and
you can apologize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can absolutely apologize, and you can go do some work to learn about it, so you grow from that experience.
Well, nobody wants to eat crow is the problem, and we should all eat crow sometimes. Sometimes we're all wrong, and people can't take it on the chin for some reason anymore and just be like, damn it, I fucked up. Because people will forgive you. I mean, they really will.
Well, not being able to eat crow is that whole participation trophy fucking culture.
Yeah, I mean, people won't just be like, you know what, damn it.
I was fucking wrong.
I slipped the tongue and I was wrong. My bad.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And that's hard. I mean, look, it's hard for anybody. And part of what happens is because shame just sweeps over people. And we've talked about that before.
That's a shitty feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. The shame spiral's sucky.
I'm used to it for some reason.
And particularly, I mean,
I've
look,
put my
this
foot in my
topic
mouth
tonight.
so many times.
This topic tonight is like prime shame area.
Yeah.
The reason people send in questions anonymously is because this is shame central.
Well, here's a good one for sake of time. This one was written to me.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to try, and then I'll
call.
You
want me to read it?
You can read it, but I know what the acronym is. Go ahead.
I don't know what that acronym is.
Okay. It's Randall.
I know. Never mind.
Randall, I have what I believe to be pornography-induced erectile dysfunction.
I was going to say pied.
I can only get hard from porn. My wife is tired of my half-melted erections, and I am worried I may lose her. How can I fix this?
Yikes.
Okay, so my personal opinion on that, sir, is that's all in your head.
It is.
Erections for men are largely in your head. I speak from experience. There's plenty of times when my blood pressure medication was adjusted, it fucked with my erections. And then I got in my head about my boners, and that fucks up my boners.
And then I was like, you aren't attracted to me.
Yeah, it is when you start overthinking your boners as a man, you can absolutely fuck yourself. So, sir, in my professional, not professional opinion, that's in your head. Now, Rachel, you go.
Okay. So, for starters, how you fix this, go find yourself a good sex therapist in your area. This is specifically something that they work with. Because, well, yes, I wouldn't say it's in your head. I would say that you've trained yourself, you've trained your body to respond to certain things, and it's going to take some undoing, right? Rule out any anything. Go see your urologist, go see see your family doctor, get your, whatever to your urologist. Go ensure that there is nothing medical first and foremost. Check your medications. Anything and everything from blood pressure medications to to antidepressants to lots of things can have sexual side effects that you may be unaware of.
Performance enhancing
Eliminate all
drugs.
those possibilities first.
Yep. See an endocrinologist for your hormonal levels.
Yep. Go check all that stuff out. Rule that stuff out. And then a good sex therapist can work with you around this topic. You're not the only person who feels that way. This is not an unusual topic at all. And in some ways it's what you've trained yourself to respond to, and that there are techniques that can help untrain that.
Would they curb him from his pornography usage, you think?
That depends on the therapist and the approach
Sure.
he or she thinks is best, depending on what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's so going to be dependent on the context. There's going to be relational things, that will be examined. There will be, sexual history examined. There will be all of these things. The larger context gets taken into account before you go and look, most sex therapists will say exactly what I just said, which is go rule out all the medical stuff. Yeah. And sex therapy is its own thing, but in sex therapy is also couples therapy. So you can choose to go alone, or you can choose to go together.
Sure.
That would be dependent. I mean, I would check with, whoever's really good in your area. You can go to ASECT, and there's a listing of certified sex therapists in, I think it's done by state. ASECT is AASECT. American Association of Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. It's ridiculous, but if you just look up ASECT and sex therapy, directory, they can guide you to certified sex therapists. This is something they deal with on a regular basis.
So it's treatable.
It's definitely something that, you can go work with. And if your wife is really struggling and you're concerned that she's going to leave you, I would probably recommend, either going with her or having her come with you. So she's part of this process. In part because most sex therapists are pretty decent, couples therapists, or maybe find a couples therapist that you guys can see if you want to do the sex therapy on your own.
Sweet. Well, this one is, I don't know if you remember, but when we ended the last time you were here, I said, let's wrap on this question and save it for when we come back and we're talking about porn. It had to do with big black cocks.
Again?
That was
again with the big black cocks.
I'm telling you, that is, if you look a keyword in porn and all that, big black cocks is up there in the top.
It's a popular one.
That's the topic, yeah.
All right. I recently went through my fiance's computer
and found big
and
black
saw
cocks.
that he had an incredible amount of porn that was saved. And she put in parentheses, don't judge me for going through his computer. Most of it,
my first question.
Most of it was of big black cock on white women. We are both white.
Oh.
Not that I don't know what that matters, but along with pictures of girls from his past. Ooh. How do you view my situation?
Ooh.
And this is to Rachel. It
Yeah,
was
I know.
written specifically to her.
know.
There's a few weird picadillos in there.
A lot of
Well,
layers.
yes and no, because I'm not all that shocked, because part of what can be sexually arousing for people is things that are different than what you normally have.
Oh yeah, the big black cocks part isn't even alarming to me.
It's more just like a fascination, I think.
Could be.
Well,
taboo, different.
Yeah, and even just novelty, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a new article that I think I have it. Maybe I'll post it. About what is your sexual what do your sexual fantasies say about you? There's a new book called, oh crap, why can't I find it?
Well, it's interesting. I Googled this the other day wondering.
You Googled big black cocks?
No, I Googled what's the most common porn search when I was researching for this.
Asians.
No, it's mommy and stepmommy.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's men that search that first.
Milfs.
That's the number. No, it's like
Yep.
their mom and their stepmom. They want to see mothers and stepmothers having sex, supposedly with their stepson or real son.
Oy vey.
That is strange.
Yep.
I'd rather it be big black cocks.
It's not big black cocks.
or Asians.
It's mommy and stepmommy.
Oy.
So there's a new book out called Tell Me What You Want, The Science of Sexual Desire and How It Can Help You Improve Your Sex Life. But he did a lot of studies about sex fantasies. Like that was the research. And so it doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. Like there's an article about what, kind of off of the book, what your sexual fantasies say about your personality. And it breaks it down into sort of the big 5 personality types, openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness. And it's an interesting article, and I think I shared it before, but I'll share it again or send it to you guys, because look, people have lots of different sexual fantasies around lots of different things. And everybody has stuff that turns them on, and it may just be stuff that turns you on, but as long as it's not, illegal and it's consensual and nobody's hurting anyone that isn't in a way that isn't consensual, then it's not really an issue. My question would be exactly the thing that she said. Don't judge me for looking in his computer. My first question would be like, what were you looking for?
That was my question. And the other question was, if it's things that were old, save things, like she said, old girlfriends, or, I mean, that she's, in my opinion, and I'm not you, she's barking up a bad tree, opening a fight that's not necessary.
No, it's
not. Well,
not.
I'm also just curious as to what she was concerned about, because what this says to me is there was something she was looking for something, because she's having a gut something, and so I would explore that. And I don't necessarily know that there's anything bad about any of this. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing that he's turned on by, and that's the porn that he watches. Okay. Yeah. If there's a larger issue with porn in the relationship, maybe we need to talk about that. I think if there's a problem with their sex life, maybe we need to talk about that. And what people are watching in porn is not necessarily what they want.
No, it's just what turns them on.
There's, people have fantasies, like, I think we might have touched base on this before, but this idea that there's fantasies that you would do.
Sure.
Like
absolutely.
if you were ever given the chance, right? Like you jump on it.
And stuff you never would.
Right. Then there's fantasies that you would do if every single situation were absolutely perfect, and like you might have sex in a place that you knew you get in trouble for, but if all the little details were taken care of and you'd never get in trouble or you'd never get caught, then you'd go ahead and do that fantasy. And then there's the fantasy that actually only works in your head.
Sure.
Like, it's super whatever it's a super turn on to watch it watch it in porn, but you don't actually want to do it.
Yeah, to watch a big black cock rail a stepmother.
Right.
Supposedly.
And and part of that is taboo too, right? Like the things that are taboo are the most, are super intriguing.
That's exactly. See, I'm a therapist. Yeah. I was thinking the same word.
You're finishing each other's sentences.
I know. We're right on the same page, but there's another article that came out, I think, it's back in February. It's can you build up a tolerance to porn? Right? And the truth is the research hasn't borne out that way. We're people, once you start to watch porn, then you need harder core porn, and no, it's actually, the research isn't indicating that, actually. It's not like with a drug.
Yeah, it's not a gateway drug.
No, it's really not. People who are turned on by some of the more hardcore porn are actually just turned on by more porn in general. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily because you've sort of reached that now it takes more to get me off.
Now the very rare few, to call back to my boy Ted Bundy, not my boy, but
the
But one of my weird obsessions of serial killers is that's when it starts escalating, when your porn obsession, for lack of a better word, preference starts escalating, could become worrisome, because he talks about that right before he's executed. He's like, it started with porn at a very young age, and then it was like I needed porn where they were like beating each other up, and then and then it wasn't enough, and then I had to go out and do it myself.
Well, that's because I would assume because there was a mental illness behind all that.
Exactly, but that's where people start going in their heads, where when they see like somebody that they care about that likes porn, that's immediately where people go. They're like, that means you're a fucking serial killer. But it doesn't mean that.
What they're saying is that the research isn't actually bearing that out to be true. Does that mean that no one has that experience? No.
Right. It's so very few, though.
Is that it's not a generalizable fact. It's not something that's like it happens to everyone. There's this great new article that came out in April. I know I posted this one because I found it really interesting. So what actually makes porn bad for relationships? Most people don't have issues with porn. It's actually more problematic for people who are very religious.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Porn is more problematic if you have a really strong religious affiliation or a religious background, because there's so much shame attached to it.
Right.
And it's more about that connection to shame and the beliefs you have around porn in general due to that type of connection more than it is about the porn.
Sure.
And so, I mean, I'm less worried. Look, do I believe that people struggle with this? Yes, but I think what happens is people diagnose themselves with a disorder that's not actually listed in the DSM, by the way.
Well, let's go right before you start.
Oh, shit. Yeah, last question.
I put this last just because I knew it was your soapbox, this last question. That's why I specifically put it last and gave it to Brooke to ask, because I'm teeing up your softball. Me and you agree on this as much as I was giving you shit on Twitter. I agree with you 1,000%, but we got to ask it because it was asked. Go ahead and ask it, Doug.
Yeah. I have been seeing a therapist since 2010 for sex and porn addiction. My wife stays with me on the condition that I fight my illness. I have never been prescribed meds. Rachel, do you think meds would help?
No.
I agree. And thank you, everyone.
And bye-bye.
No, because it's not. Look, the problem with the addiction model, number one, if you, and I'm gonna try really hard not to go on my usual tangent about this. Because do I get worked up about this one?
Yeah, what fucking meds would you prescribe?
I'm on board with you 100%. I think if they gave someone meds for this, they would be just creating an addict of some kind of medicine.
I don't even understand what meds you would prescribe. Like, you're addicted to porn? Here, take Vicodin.
No.
What?
No. And look, there are therapists who will disagree with me. Like, this is a split in the community. Like, there are people who totally buy into the addiction model. I am not one of those. And so, look, can you find a therapist who will treat you for sex and porn addiction and they will use the addiction model? Sure, absolutely. The problem with the addiction model is it's not proven to work. And the addiction model, is based off of very often like 12-step abstinence only, or harm reduction models, maybe a little more helpful, or the 12-step model, which also doesn't work, by the way, because this is not a this is a natural bodily function.
12 steps pretty based in religion, isn't it? Isn't it based kind of on
They'll tell you it's not religion. They'll tell you it's like higher power, however you see that.
Yeah.
But it is, look, there's not necessarily research to back up the 12-step plan. And the addiction model doesn't, I mean, there's a lot of people who question that because there's not research to back that up.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a push more now, particularly with this book called Treating Out of Control Sexual Behavior. And what it is it's a change in looking at it more like from a sexual health standpoint. Like, this isn't working for you. Something about this isn't working. It's not an addiction in the true sense of what we see in addiction. You know, you don't need more of it to get the high. You don't need it doesn't work that way.
Would you even consider it like a compulsion?
Like, do I think that people sometimes struggle with compulsion around that? Yeah, I can acknowledge that. But you treat compulsions differently than you do addictions.
Oh, I agree with. I mean, believe me and you're on the same team. I think me, you, and Brooke all agree. I think it's when I hear another celebrities going to rehab for sex or porn addiction, I just want to shit my pants and throw it at the TV.
And I'm gonna be real honest with you. The sex addiction deal is a quick money maker.
Oh, because they're rich. Your patients are probably rich.
If you notice the people who are really, who really use that whole sex addiction topic, they're always rich people.
No one that's my friend has ever been to rehab for sex addiction.
It's rich people that got busted for cheating on their wife, so they're
saving their marriage.
Fuck, I'm addicted to sex. I can't help it, baby.
I'll pay you $2 million to see me for 2 weeks to save my marriage.
And to tell my wife I'm cured.
I'm crazy.
I'm cured now, and she needs to take me back and not sue me for
it blows my
billions
tits
of
off.
dollars. Yeah,
it's a ruse, in my opinion.
And if people really want, more information about why I really have a hard time with this, like I can give some of the people, like I'm more than happy to share some of the articles that really sort of speak more in detail as to what really bothers me about it. In part, my thing is sex is not like shopping or gambling or, smoking or drugs or
it's not even like food to me. People always compare it. They're like, but you can, and believe me, you've heard me before. I'm probably the least sensitive to people that are overweight in the world, but I don't even think it's fair to say, oh, sex addiction it's the same as food addiction. I don't even believe that. I believe people can have food addictions.
I'm not a fan of the addiction
model
of treatment in general. But that's me. Yeah. It doesn't mean you won't find people to treat that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there were some people who will tell you they've had success with that. And I can't argue their experience. I can tell you the research just doesn't always back it up. Mm-hmm. And I can also say that let's remember, particularly if we're talking about sex addiction, it's not in the DSM. It's not a diagnosable condition. They're treating you for something that the mental health community can't even agree is actually a thing. Right. So I'm not sure how you do that.
No, I think it's about money from my perspective.
Yeah. And the addiction, the addiction model is a massive moneymaker. Mm-hmm. Massive moneymaker. And look, I don't pretend that therapy itself is not expensive.
Sure.
Like I don't.
And to some people, they feel like it's a luxury.
Well, sure. I mean, we both have it. Yeah. So, yeah.
So a lot of people I can't, because it's expensive, it's only for rich people and it's a luxury. I mean, it's not something that everybody can even consider.
Right. Yeah. It's really, it's truthfully, we've priced out mental health. And part of that is due to the way insurance works, and part of that is due to the way that, look, therapists have lots of student loan debt. We're trying to pay that back too. So, and we have expertise in areas, and I'm not saying that people aren't worth the money, but check the qualifications of the therapist that you're seeing, check their training, check their background. Mm-hmm. If you're going to a place that only deals in addiction, sometimes those people only have addictions training. They're not therapists. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they were former addicts themselves, which doesn't make them not qualified, but it also means that they might not have full therapy to treat addiction is very different than to do therapy. Mm-hmm. They're not the same thing. And so people don't always know that. And look, if somebody comes to me as an alcoholic or as a drug addict, I'm probably going to also suggest that they see an addictions counselor in addition to me.
Yeah.
Because the way people treat, the way society currently treats addiction is very different than how we do therapy. And I'm not going to tell people to go do the 12-step model where you give up sex.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that's effective. It doesn't. People have sex. People want to have sex. People it's part of life. And
they love ski to fuck ski, as I like to say.
Right. And so and there is not a medication that will treat sex addiction.
No, and if somebody gave them one, that's what chaps my ass about people handing out medications for just on a whim, hoping it'll work. That just creates so many issues, and it tears my ass up.
I have concerns with who's giving the medication, because yes, family physicians, like your primary care doctor, yeah, they did a round in the psychiatric ward. I get that. But it's also not their specialty. So they're going to write you a prescription for a antidepressant, and, it might work, but did they tell you to combine that with therapy to actually make that medication more effective? Psychiatrists exist because that's really who should be giving you your medication, not your family doctor.
No, and
Psychiatrists are hard to come by these days.
That is a great point, and I'm going to throw myself right under the bus again, because I have no problem in making an ass out of myself or acknowledging my faults in this. My psychologist or psychiatrist, who I love very much here in Atlanta, I talked about her to you multiple times. She's the best. And I see her, once every 3 months, and she's just awesome. I love it. I had gotten from my primary doctor, I don't remember how long ago, it was my primary doctor here is Dr. Williamson. And she was like, I was talking to her at my physical, and she was like, you know what, I want to put you on a low dose of Boost Bar for antidepressant. Like, it's real low. And I was like, I don't really want to take another medication. But okay, because we were talking about my anxiety, which I've talked openly about. I've got anxiety. Yeah. And so I didn't think anything of it, filled it, had it. I went to my psychiatrist and was talking to Dr. Amy, who's my psychiatrist. And, like any good doctor, she sees my chart and sees my, she has that DEA thing. So she can see if anybody's doctor shopping or anything, or if you're getting any bullshit prescriptions. And she says, Randall, what the fuck, without saying the fuck, why the fuck is Dr. Williamson writing you a prescription for an anti-anxiety medication? And I said, oh, shit. I said, I'm sorry. I mean, I would have told you if you'd asked. She knew I wasn't shopping because I wasn't trying to get that from her. But she said, listen, I'm going to be real straight up with you. We've been seeing each other for years. Love you. But that's for me to do. And I was like, damn. But that's right to your point.
Out. Well, and I appreciate her willingness to call you out on that.
She sure did.
I mean, I know, look, there are times when if it's going to take you 3 to 6 months to get into a psychiatrist that takes your insurance, I understand why you go to why do you go to your primary care physician and they can hold you over for things like that. Mm-hmm. Like, I get it because I know how hard it is. Psychiatrists don't always take certain insurance companies, and there's all that kind of stuff. I get that. And at the same time, that is mental health medications are not their specialty. Mm-hmm. That's not what they're known for. Like I know primary care physicians who tried to diagnose bipolar disorder and then didn't medicated the person and then didn't tell them that they needed to follow up with a psychiatrist and they needed to seek therapy.
Well, yeah, and a lot of those drugs, none of us are shitting on primary care doctors. We're just phenomenal. Saying, but you get, and I know people close to me that, they've gotten on a very strong, not a Boost Bar or a lisinopril or not lisinopril. What's the L word for depression? The L medicine.
The lithium? Yeah, something like that.
No, not lithium. That's straight up gangster.
No, lithium is for more.
Yeah,
but
severe bipolar.
But they can a primary doctor may put you on that and not explain because they're not so versed in that medication how to ramp down off of it. properly,
Right.
and if you don't ramp down properly off of it, you might put a gun in your mouth.
That's exactly right.
And people end up committing suicide, not at the fault of
Lexapro.
Lexapro, boom.
Okay.
Well done.
Yeah, you have
That
to.
just popped
you
in
have
my
to be
head.
cleaned up.
And that's where my psychiatrist was coming from when she was so pissed off. She was like, look, I know that's a very mild drug. And she was even like, and I agree, that's fine. I'll even write it for you going forward. But you need to do your part with me, Randall, and talk to me, and I will handle it. And that was it. I mean, it was great, and I was glad she did it, but she sure busted my balls. And I appreciate
Good for
it.
her. Good for her. Yeah, I mean, and look, I don't think primary care physicians are out there. I think they're desperately trying to help people. I understand why they do what they do. I think we as consumers need to do a better job of understanding who specializes in what and why we should see different practitioners for different things. Like, you're not asking your primary care physician to do your plastic surgery. You're just not. That's not their deal. You don't want them stitching your ear back on because I don't know. I don't know where that came from. But anyway, you're not going to ask them to do that. You're not like that. In an emergency, sure, yes, you'd have whoever's available in front of you. You'd have the EMT stitch you up if that's what you had to do. But if you can, dealing with medications is, that's a psychiatrist's job. Therapy is not necessarily their job, but knowing the medications that work for different diagnoses, that's what they do. And so make sure you're seeing the right people for the right thing. And my question is, go back to the listener's question. How long has he been seeing the therapist?
Since 2010.
Yeah. 8 years.
Something isn't working.
Right.
Yeah, that's
We
true.
need a new therapist.
Or
And I'm
are
not
you
saying
really
that the
opening up to your
therapist
therapist, too?
But this isn't working.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that. That's 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. If you're there's something going on around this, because what I'd be curious about is what approaches have been taken. What have we tried to work on in this area? Do we need to see a sex therapist instead of seeing a counselor? Are we seeing an addictions counselor who's maybe not really equipped to really handle this and get what's underneath it? I have a whole lot of questions about this, but 8 years with a therapist, and it doesn't seem that we've changed, that there's been any change around this. That's concerning to me, because I don't think this is about medication, because there is not a medication for sex addiction, because sex addiction is not a thing. But
I saw what you
I'm
did
really
there.
curious as to what isn't working here. Something's not working.
I agree. That's a long, and if it sounds like maybe he's realizing that because he's asking Rachel what medicines might work.
Yeah,
So clearly he's getting that it's not working.
Something's not working. I would seek a new therapist, and I would look, therapists are like shoes. You wouldn't buy a pair of shoes and keep them if they didn't fit, if they pinched your feet and you were miserable and they didn't work for you. Why would you keep wearing them? Therapists are the same way. Sometimes something just isn't working, and it may not even be the therapist's fault. It may just simply be they're not the right fit for you.
Well, yeah, and they're people too, so it's all relationship based, right? So if you just if you rub each other wrong, which people do, there's nothing wrong with that. People get upset about it.
It doesn't necessarily mean that they're rubbing you wrong, but it may just be an approach that doesn't click in your brain. It just doesn't line up for you. It's not how you see things. They haven't been able to tap into what's going to bring change about for you. Somebody new and different might see your situation completely differently. I've had experiences like that where somebody else had a client and then I ended up taking over the client for whatever case. I saw the whole case differently and approached it completely differently because I come from a different place. It's not that the other therapist was bad. I'm just different.
Yeah. Word
and
up.
I've had different impacts on those clients because I'm different. So my thing would be, look at who else is available around. I would recommend, again, checking for an ASEC certified sex therapist, because they're the people who have some of this information. It does not mean that some of them don't buy into the sex addiction model, but you can ask that. You can ask that when you call. Are you someone, do you treat sex addiction? And what you can find out from that is because look, if somebody says to me, do you treat sex addiction? My response is going to be, I would like to chat with you about why you think that's what the problem is. I don't really, that's not necessarily something that I would maybe not necessarily say I don't believe in, but I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about why you've self-diagnosed yourself with that. And that will sort of tell you if a therapist kind of buys into that addiction model. And if that's the treatment that's been currently happening as a sex addiction model to treatment, and that's not working, we got to find something else.
Well, I love it. That puts us at 1 hour and 45 minutes. So
look at us.
That's pretty perfect.
I think we finished them all.
Nice.
Going forward, that's the number of questions I will pick. That's perfect.
What was it? I don't even remember now.
7. No, 6.
7.
6. 6, because I didn't ask one because we kind of covered it in talking. So 6.
Okay.
6 is the perfect number.
6 is the magic number.
That keeps us down to a decent time.
Well, what I want to do for next time, if you're cool with it, Rachel, is let you think on it and decide what you want the topic to be, and send it to us next week, and we'll start promoting it.
Yeah, it's September 17th is what the date would be. Yeah,
but something that you find that you think is important to discuss, and we'll put it out and give people 3 weeks to start pouring in questions.
You know what's more important in this realm than we do.
You're better than us.
Always.
Well, it's just we've covered some things. I'll see if I can think of something that we haven't really chatted about.
Yeah, something fresh.
Yeah.
Because so we've discussed
parenting and porn. We're like the last
porn,
two.
We've talked about parenting. We've talked about, but I can. I'll think of something and we can go from there as long as it seems like it works for you guys. I talked about a bunch of articles and a bunch of resources. I will, I'll either send them to you guys or I'll tweet them out so everybody can kind of pay attention and keep an eye out on our Twitter accounts for those.
Yeah, just tweet them out because everybody that follows us follows you now. So everybody, perfect.
Yeah,
everybody that follows us follows you.
My Twitter followers have been increasing, I noticed. While I was on vacation, the Pattern Family hashtag blew up my notifications. There you go, girl. I took a week off Twitter.
Yeah, no, I saw that you had a couple of threads with Dr. Muddington and Jody that were going rampant without a response. Gracious. And then you came back and you were like, Jesus, guys, I've been gone for 4 days.
Trying to spend some time with my husband.
Ow! I was on vacation, people.
Right.
Yeah, your vacation, by the way, looked like the yummiest vacation as far as food goes that I've ever seen.
I love it.
Charleston must have some good ass eating.
We need to go to fucking Charleston.
We ate the whole trip, and Charleston, I am in love with Charleston.
Charleston looks like it's kind of like New Orleans.
But nicer.
Well,
cleaner.
Less dirty. Shut up. Shut your mouth. New Orleans is dirty as fuck, I know.
Well, it was interesting. We did one of the historical tours, and they said they're like, so people tell us that Charleston reminds us of New Orleans. What they should know is that Charleston was here first. And
smells less like pee. Doesn't smell as urine-y, maybe.
It was the city was phenomenal. I'm a total history geek, complete and total history geek, and I adore architecture.
I'm an old architecture geek. When old buildings that are fucking cool looking, I am foaming at the mouth. So cool. Look at that old building. And people are like, what?
We just stand in places where people stood hundreds of years ago at the same space.
So cool.
I love it. And then the food scene has really taken off in Charleston. So, we had some amazing food. We are in love with a restaurant called 167 Raw.
Oysters.
Oysters.
Well, we were there.
Yeah, God, you guys.
Tiny little hole in the wall. It's 20 people at a time.
Yeah, but y'all went like 3 times. I'm a stalker. I'm just gonna be honest. I know, but I was watching your vacation because it made me hungry, and you guys, you guys did hit that oyster bar a lot, and it made me like. I'm not a fan of oysters. No, like they look delicious, and I wish I was like cool. Like it looks very cool to eat them, and looks fancy.
I'll eat them with a shitload of like horseradish and like.
Oh, my sister tells me it looks like we just eat boogers. So.
Well, that's what they are. They're big ocean boogers.
Well, obviously they're delicious boogers.
They're okay.
So good.
They're good when you slather them in horseradish. And
I'm sure they're better when they're fresh at places like Charleston and places like that.
Well, and in Louisiana too, but. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not everybody's thing. But yeah, if you're a history geek, an architecture geek, Charleston's definitely a place to check out.
And there's the beach. It's like an old, cool city, and you got the beach right there. Like, yeah, we need to go to
Sullivan's
Charleston.
Island and Isle of Palms were the most phenomenal beaches I think I've ever been to in my life. And I love Caribbean beaches, and these beaches were perfect water. Wow. No stones, no coral. Like the water was 83 degrees.
What?
That's ocean water.
That's insane. Is that near Wilmington? Is it near Wilmington?
No, it's way down further.
Okay, because I was trying to think of when we were near there, but that when we went to Myrtle Beach and we were going to go to Wilmington, and then there was that hurricane.
Myrtle's closer. Charleston's way down on the other.
Just come south.
Toward Miami, like Charleston's down toward Florida more, and all that.
Because that's different states. I'm an idiot.
But no, I mean it's just down the coast.
Is it Myrtle Beach, North Carolina?
No, it's South Carolina.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Just take Myrtle Beach south. Like go south from Myrtle Beach along the coast, and you're there. We had the best time. It was an amazing vacation. I highly recommend. If you haven't been, you should go.
We're close enough where we should go.
Because
we're in Georgia.
We were super sad we didn't come see you guys.
I know,
but you guys look like you had a great time.
But it was y'all were also driving all around everywhere, and if y'all went through around here to see your friends in Norcross, I'm telling you, that's literally, you might as well still have been in Charleston. Like it's not close to where we are.
And that piece fell apart, so we didn't even end up coming down that way.
Oh,
so
well then fuck,
in Charleston. But I was like,
I was trying to make you not feel bad if you came to Atlanta and we're in Norcross, because I'm like, girl, that's like an hour and a half away in no traffic. Like in zero, and that's never the case in Atlanta, so I don't want to make anybody feel bad for coming to Atlanta and being like, oh, I'm in Lawrenceville. I'm like, go fuck yourself.
Well,
people do that to Chicago too. They're like, Rachel, we're in Chicago. Right. I'm like, okay, what you need to understand is we live outside of the city, but I work in the city.
Humongous place. Yeah.
And you're staying all the way out like 2 hours. That like, no.
It's a fucking whole country of cities in this like Atlanta quote unquote area. Well, so yeah.
And it really makes more sense if we can finally get ourselves, for one, because I've never been to Chicago. I want to go see. I want to go see Dr. Muddington.
Yeah, no, I've been one time.
And if we get up to Chicago, we can go watch the improv group. That
you can come see Tom.
Yeah, that Tom works at Second.
He did that.
Second City, right?
So...
Yeah, so he's been doing some stuff with.
Awesome.
He's been taking some improv classes at Second City.
Second City
Center. Yeah. So there's great shows.
Chicago's famous for that.
I know, but like a lot of fucking huge comedians come out of Second City.
Bill Murray, Chris Farley.
It's a ridiculous list of folks that come out of there.
Awesome.
Oh my god.
So they have classes, and so I actually gave him classes for Valentine's Day. And he had so much fun. He's just been going straight through the program, having a good time. So he did.
Is he a groundling?
He's done 2 performances now, which is fun. And we've been spending a lot more time there doing date nights. And they have a Sunday brunch, at least for the summer, that you can go to. That was great time. We went with some friends of mine from school, and so that was so much fun. But yeah, like if you guys come to Chicago, there's so many things we can do.
No, we'll hook up if we can. I want to make that happen. I told Muddy we got the new car now. We could even drive it.
Nice.
And I was like, we got a new car.
Terrible drive. We've driven it.
And when I went there many years ago, I drove it, and it was like 10 hours.
I'm dying to go to Chicago. Never.
I think it was like 10 or 11 hours. But like, I mean, yeah. I we've got a lot of things planned this year. I loved Chicago when I went there. It's a fucking cool ass city. I fucking love it.
I want to go in the winter though, because I love snow and cold.
No, baby, I'm telling you,
No.
different. It's not the cool kind of cold and snow that we like.
No.
It's not cool. It's like okay. I went there in May. It was May, walking down
And it was
Michigan
like
Avenue.
40.
No, yeah, exactly. May.
That's weird.
Walking down Michigan Avenue, I was like, I have to fucking go in a store and buy a goddamn jacket because the Windy City, no fucking joke. It's not it's not just a cute phrase. It's real.
No, it's not.
It's real. And it's in May. I was fucking cold walking down Michigan Avenue. I was like, this is stupid. This is dumb.
Well, I hate windy cold.
And it's
Yeah,
windy.
You don't want to come here.
It's
in
the
winter
Windy
time.
City, baby.
I mean, look, unless you come around Christmas
don't go in
time
winter.
and you see the windows and the lights in the city, and yes, you can
But from
do that.
inside a heated car.
Right.
Like and
Do
it's
it that
no,
way.
like when I went and visited our friends there, and it was so many. They were like, "There's times," and they lived in I think they lived not. Did they live in Lincoln Park? Fuck, I forget where they lived.
Yeah,
but they
that
lived
would
in
make
some kind of like cool, trendy like borough. But like they were saying that like they only took this like subways. They didn't have a car, and like my friend's girlfriend was like, "So there's times of the year where." I literally have to run to the subway station because the news says that I shouldn't have any exposed skin outside for longer than like 30 seconds.
Yep.
I'm like,
Yep.
what? So she's like, I've got everything covered and like a scarf around my face and like literally my eyes are the only things showing because I have to be able to see and like run to the subway station. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's not cool. Yeah,
I'll
we get
pass.
these like wind chills of like negative 25.
It's the wind. It's the fucking wind. And that's the bottom line, baby. It's the wind. And you hate wind. And so we're just going to do like summer or fall.
There you go. I mean, look, our summer heat can be really oppressive and awful,
Spring,
but
yeah.
it's way better than our winters.
Well, we live in Georgia, so we know all about oppressive.
Right.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's
fucking
totally
muggy.
normal for you.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get on that. I'm totally down. We'll figure it out. But you just let us know what topic you want to do
I
for
will
September
think about it.
17th.
Yeah.
And we'll wrap it up from there. We're not even going to do an outro. I'm going to out us while you're still on with us.
Yeah.
All
So-
right. Sounds good.
So when I say the go fuck yourself, it's not to you. It's to the...
Okay.
It's funny though because I'm finding like people are starting to send that to me like they're it's like the tagline, so it's a term of endearment.
I remember Jamie Rice from Murderish was like, I love your outro, like the go fuck yourself. She's like, since mine's about murder, should I tell people to go stab themselves?
Yeah. I mean it lovingly, but we love you. We appreciate this was this was so fun.
It
I
was
enjoyed
fun.
this conversation. We talked about some shit that I've never heard of.
I know.
I'm
and
glad you learned something
other
today.
people might not have too, and that's what I
We're
think
always
is the,
learning when we
Yeah.
talk to Rachel.
What I
So,
love about you guys.
well, we love you, and we will talk to everyone later, and we'll get out any information that Rachel has for questions that were asked. If she doesn't put it out, we'll put out what she sends us. So we will address them on Twitter what she does have access to. So. Everybody, we hope you enjoyed the episode, and go fuck yourselves.
Bye, Rachel.
Bye, Rachel.
Bye.
Bye.